Greetings folk, rambling video today. I had some weird thoughts and figured I might as well share them with you. I mean, that's what you follow my channel for after all, right? For today's video, the parallel between Sonic and Star Wars, and perhaps even the larger cultural environments. In a lot of ways, I feel Sonic is parallel, a lot more small-scaled, to Star Wars, especially this decade. And I ain't just talking about a death act. For example, I remember Star Wars fans complaining about Rogue One for relying too much on fan service, and worse, badly implemented, forced fan service that felt less like world building and more like just cramming in familiar shapes in your face just for the sake of it. Which, from Sonic's side, yeah, I feel ya. Hey, at least you Star Wars fans get Rogue One to actually be about something. An actual story, at least trying to be connected to the classic movies. About how the rebels got their information in the original movie. If Rogue One was more like Sonic, it would be about a space magic wizard just magically teleporting locales, characters, and items from the other Star Wars movies randomly in front of the main character for no reason. The Mos Eisley Cantina wouldn't be a specific building in a specific town on a specific planet. It'd be just magic space aesthetic. It's just the Cantina aesthetic floating in limbo, and every goddamn Star Wars movie would require the main characters to go there because it's iconic. Then there's the fact that if you're too critical of Star Wars movies, you usually get rebuffed by the classic old, "It's for kids, it's about space wizards" response. Familiar logic to Sonic fans. Of course, we all know that only dry technical documentaries deserve critical scrutiny. As soon as there's even one fantastical element about any kind of project, brains off. Mindless silliness for children to be consumed with zero brain activity. I'm a serious adult, damn it. And more interestingly, the most important thing of all, just like how I sense that there's an increasing respect and desire to return Sonic to the Dark Ages as the current era of Sonic, for all its improved polish and quality, just kind of feels dead, soulless wasteland, I sense a similar movement with Star Wars fans, where the once oh-so-evil and unredeemable prequels start receiving more and more respect by the day. It's fascinating. This increased interest and respect for George Lucas in the prequels is immensely fascinating to me. This is the first time I've seen so many people turn against the mighty wisdom of the internet. The internet has been a hard, unmovable authority for a long time. Remember back when you were a kid and you were told not to mindlessly fall for peer pressure? No, you don't get the new Nintendo just because Johnny at school has one. What, if Johnny jumps off a bridge, will you jump too? Grow up and be an adult. Well, never mind that. You're an adult now and peer pressure all the way, bitch. You watch My Little Ponies as a grown-ass adult? You wear fedoras! Use Comic Sans! Pineapple on pizza! No, bitch! The internet has declared what any adult should and shouldn't do, and you follow suit, understood? Yes, you will jump off that goddamn bridge if the internet tells you to. Sonic 06 is shit, prequels are shit, end of discussion. Everyone is a critic, and all critics combined become the internet, that mighty authority of ours. And in the 2010s, that's the decade where the critics ruled the world. YouTube and streaming got to full steam. Everyone can make videos and become critics. I mean, there have been critics on YouTube since the 2005s, but now their power is really felt in culture at large. Culture has become more meta, self-aware. Everyone's a critic. Producers and artists are made hyper-aware of their shortcomings and cliches. The nerds were now in charge. What followed was a ton of fan service, a ton of self-awareness. The big media, the big entertainment, it's all about pleasing the nerds. Nerds are hyper-technical, so natural story flow was diminished, and instead it's more about the meta structure around it. Putting in characters nerds love, and appeasing them from a meta perspective. And Star Wars is such a perfect example of this. Each of the big main Disney sequels makes perfect sense when you look at them from a meta-cultural perspective. The first one, we came fresh from the prequels, and we hated them. Too far removed from classic Star Wars, too political, too dark, too complex, too dull. So we get The Force Awakens, back to the roots, no politics, just a simple, straightforward recreation of those classic movies you like so much. Here's your Luke Skywalker, your Darth Vader, your Boba Fett, literal and figuratively, exactly what you want. Except, it was too much what people wanted, too cliche, exactly the same structure as the original movie. Make it more unique, give us new things we haven't seen before, surprise us! So here's Star Wars The Last Jedi, subverting your expectations, giving you new visuals, new locations, new twists. No, Rey, I'm your father here, parents are worthless. No Palpatine clone here, bam, dead. No Luke Skywalker. This Boba Fett is killed prematurely and anticlimactically, unlike the original, well. No silly mysteries about who Snoke is, or Rey parents are, or any of that cliche crap. But oops, Last Jedi was so busy throwing all of its villains and mysteries off a cliff that there isn't any damn movie left for the finale to be about. Hey, we wanted the cliche crap about who Snoke is, and who Rey's parents are. I mean, what else are you gonna fill the last movie with? So then you get Rise of the Skywalkers desperately trying to appease the fans by putting all the anticlimactic mysteries back in, dangling as much fan service in front of the fans as possible to distract them from how the movie was completely directionless and derailed. Yeah. And the fun part about making decisions based entirely around the critics, rather than a legit desire to tell a story, is when the critics have opposing opinions. Put in more gays! Put in more Rose Tico! No, gay's evil! No Rose Tico! Well, shit, now what? Kind of do it? Kind of don't do it? See, when George Lucas got complaints and criticisms of his prequel series, he would address them through his story. People hate Jar Jar Binks. Okay, push his part more into the background. But he's still there fulfilling his purpose. He's still a puzzle piece in the larger context of the story, as opposed to poor Rose who's left hanging. Climax of the first movie's too chaotic? Okay, slimmer down the other movies, but the planned events still happen. As opposed to... what even... So while addressing people's complaints, George stayed true to his story as best as he could. But when your story is literally only addressing criticism in and on itself, well, there's nothing really to hang on to. And of course, as a Sonic fan, all this shit sounds very familiar. Desperately trying to recreate the past without its soul, solving problems by going too far into the extreme, addressing criticism overriding the original intent of the characters, using fan service to distract people from the chaotic mess of a product underneath. Yeah, that's 2010 Sonic all the way. Despite these new products being more polished, better made explicitly with the faults of the Dark Age in mind, and doing all in their power to avoid those pitfalls, it still leaves fans unsatisfied, and in increasingly more cases, fans are even pining back for the good old Dark Ages days. Sure, those products were a train wreck, but at least they are a train wreck. A nice solid train wreck. There's a train, it got wrecked, there's a nice beauty to it. Hey, maybe I can turn it into a house, or maybe I can even fix it up. At least they're nice solid things that tried their best to be a nice functional proper train once. Sometimes it still kind of rides. Maybe someone can fix Sonic 06 up. Maybe we can edit those prequels into a more cohesive direction. Like someone on the internet can probably fix it. Something. But the new stuff, those aren't even a train wreck. They're a magic trick, a mirage. J.J. Abrams is a masterful director. He's very talented in making the audience feel the right way, lure them into the exciting mysteries and plot he creates. The famous mystery box. When he directs a movie that someone else wrote, he can do great things. He's a great director. So get a real story written by a real writer combined with Abrams' incredible skill in engaging the audience, and you got gold. Problem starts when Abraham starts writing his scripts himself. He isn't a writer, he's a magician. He knows all the tricks to get an audience roped in, but there's nothing beneath the tricks, there's nothing under the hood. It's just surface level tricks. And as soon as the audience is no longer under the spell of the mystery and looks at the story from an exterior perspective, there's nothing there, just smoke and mirrors. His Star Wars movies were great because his smoke and mirrors were awesome. At first. But when that's cleared, you got nothing. Star Wars The Force Awakens almost feels like it's just a collection of IOUs at the end. What's to do with the villains? Nah, next movie will tell you. What's to do with Rey? Nah, next movie will tell you. What's to do with this bitch? What's to do with him leaving the Stormtroopers? Nah, next movie will tell. Except that movie never did, and it threw them off a cliff, sending the third movie spinning out of control. From the Sonic side, well, Sonic Forces was at least more efficient, being Force Awakens and Last Jedi rolled up in one. A mystery character, what's to do with him? Ooh, the next game or the comic will tell. Nah, fuck it. That said, The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi has a strong fan following, though, because it did do a few things that people like, at least a specific subset of people. In fact, what the movie did is give us a brief look into the future, and what I think is going to be the next step of our cultural direction. Because The Last Jedi wanted to bring in a sense of purpose, of meaning. It failed at it, but it was an early look at what's to come, probably, at least one version of it. The movie toyed with the idea of having a larger purpose to itself, tackling big themes. In this movie's case, politics, evil capitalism, patriarchy. It wanted to say big things about big themes. give this movie a sense of purpose. I think it failed at that, mostly because it didn't really create any proper momentum or weight to any of these things. If you want to make a statement about toxic masculinity versus female leaders, you have to establish more backstory and context to these characters. He didn't really sell it to me, but it wants the audience to immediately go with his political message without exploring it. Just assume the lady is right, just assume the guy's in the wrong, not even gonna bother why or how. Capitalism is bad because they got rich by selling guns. Oh no, people selling weapons! In a war! Oh good, I want to buy some guns for when those dicks on the First Order invaded my house any minute. Give me some guns! Sorry, I can't get myself for hating people who sell guns in this universe. I mean, the heroes look all so badass on posing with their big shiny weapons. Yeah, but in the real world, okay, fine. Point is, regardless of your stance on gun laws in the real world, you can't just grab that political statement and drop it randomly into your movie. Circumstances are different. I might be extremely anti-gun in the real world because I'm surrounded by drunken moronic neighbors that cause untold amounts of damage with just their keys and a pen and their filthy nose, so I'd rather not give them more deadly weapons. But in an action movie world where all the main characters are posing with their awesome weapons, blasting down bad guys, then I don't give a fuck about gun smugglers. Now, you could make it work if you got some history. If the First Order from Star Wars had gotten some backstory. At first, the First Order were weak and worthless and just a group of ineffectual evil Empire fanboys who couldn't accomplish anything. But then the evil capitalists gave them some weapons and now there's an evil army causing trouble. It's like, okay, now there's story context. Now I might give a fuck. But if you don't give me backstory, I don't care. It's just annoying to see a political position drop so carelessly in a movie where it doesn't really fit. If I agree with a political statement, I hate how it just feels I'm being pandered to because it isn't really addressed properly. And if I'm against the political statement, I hate how it expects me to agree with their outlandish statements without giving me any reason to. Either way, I'm unhappy. Like throwing a political message about the government overspending space research in a Star Trek episode. I mean, that could be the premise of a good episode if you make a story about that, but if you just throw in the political message randomly with no context to it, just because it bothers you in the real world, then it just feels awkward. So Roger, you might be asking, that's what you think the future will hold us? Our entertainment in the future? Politics? Well, that's one possible iteration. I think the key to this whole thing is meaning, purpose. I think that's what makes most people unhappy with the current cultural direction we're going into. We're missing a sense of meaningness, a sense of purpose. I think that's the key component where people are thirsty for and what the 2010s have taken away. Making political statements is one way to solve that. Another way is by stronger character writing. A lot of people are bothered by Star Wars and Sonic for not having good character writing. They want the hero journey. A flawed person down in their luck stumbles into an adventure where, through their morals, lessons they learn, friendships they made, and challenges they overcome, they grow into the strong hero they were meant to be, and aren't just flawless super beings sleepwalking through a random series of action scenes with any flaw they might have just dismissed as a fun quirk to celebrate and further ignore. Another possibility is world building. We nerds love world building, the sense that each previous adventure truly happened and is still a presence in the new adventures. And no, brainlessly shoving in fan service ain't world building. It's not just the fact familiar shapes show up that creates a world, it's the context in how and why they're presented as well. We crave meaning, purpose, humanity, and in the era of the critics have diminished, if not entirely eliminated, those elements. In the early days of the critics, it was all about purely dismantling the bad, with logic and making sense as the one and only quality to be celebrated. Bing, this doesn't make sense. Bing, that doesn't make sense. And if something doesn't make sense, it's meaningless, worthless, to be dismissed. Not just in entertainment, I distinctly remembering this happen all over the place, even with political movements as well. In the earlier YouTube days, it was usually the crazy people who care about something too much versus the smart logic people who are too cool to care. Problem with this approach of logic, above all, is that it neglects the humanity of the thing. We're humans, not robots. We don't operate on cold, indisputable logic. Otherwise we wouldn't be eating unhealthy, playing video games, dissecting Sonics. We'd just be soulless offspring and wealth generators. This often bothered me with the earlier movie critics. They rarely address things from a human perspective. This stupid lady in a horror movie. Why is she going up the stairs when the killer comes after her? It's more logical she went through the door. Like, right, critics, so if it's 2 in the morning, you're half asleep drinking beer, watching a stupid movie, and suddenly a crazy guy with a chainsaw jumps up and runs at you in 2 seconds, you're going to be all like, oh, a chainsaw killer. Alright, I'll just get up and go through that door and take a left. I'm Logic Man. This is the most logical thing. You have this Terminator vision, pointing out exactly what the situation is and the best course of action. You won't just be screaming like mad, your brain freezing in indecision, and you stumbling over yourself and go, ah! Right, you're just a super logical robot machine man. Anyway, as this decade went by, critics started to change. The nostalgia critic became more introspective. Red letter media grew from merely criticizing movies to celebrating movies in general. Political fights are no longer really about caring versus not caring. Critics quickly learned that just nihilistically opposing everything stupid wasn't enough. Eventually, your viewers will ask you what you stand for. If something's wrong, something else must be good. Whenever I read an Encyclopedia Dramatica article or watch a Mr. Medicare video or something where it's like this complete merciless beatdown of an individual, it takes me about 5 minutes before I'm less interested in all the dirty, disgusting things this evil individual has done, and I start to become more interested in who this commentator is, who's roasting and stomping and pounding on even the most minor incident this person might have done. It's like, what kind of perfect Ubermensch must you be then, huh? And then you learn that the majority of the moderators of Encyclopedia Dramatic have been arrested for one crime or the other, so yeah. The era of critics started to change. Beating down on the bad wasn't enough. Just avoiding the bad wasn't the answer. You needed to be about something as well. And being about something will create a risk for the bad things to happen. But focusing entirely on not making mistakes just leads to nihilistic and empty logic. But that misses the humanity of the thing, and it's the humanity where we start making mistakes. There's the conundrum. Eventually, those terrible Star Wars movies and those terrible Sonic games starting to look more and more appealing, because underneath that rubble, underneath the mess, underneath those mistakes, there's still George Lucas wanting to tell a story about the rise of the Empire, the fall of the Jedi, and Anakin Skywalker's turn into Darth Vader. Where the polished and superior Star Wars sequels were only magic tricks to subvert your expectations to go back to the roots, but were never really about anything. Poor souls hoping for a satisfying answer to any of the mysteries or any meaningful relationship between the characters. By the end of the day, Sonic 06 was about the exotic town of Soliana, with its ceremony and its horrible secrets, a guy from the future desperately trying to turn things around and almost making horrible mistakes in the process, as opposed to a Sonic game being a mere pile of recognizable shapes that lead to nothing, achieve nothing, and are about nothing. Even a religion that was at its lowest at the start of the 2010s, with everyone on the internet donning the atheist hat and piling on the religious with their silly beliefs, was all the rage. Suddenly I see more and more people realizing that religion also has a value and start to regain some respect for it. Because as much as I love to make jokes about how Jesus' sacrifice is silly when he can just resurrect himself anyway, and his resurrection is silly when he just decides that heaven is way cooler than earth anyway and fucks off in a few days without accomplishing anything, me joking about that isn't going to make anyone's faith falter. Because it was never the logic that created the faith, or it would have been the dictionary that was our Bible to begin with. But at the end of the day, the struggle we face is that we're uncomfortably in the middle of a brain evolution. We started as cave people. Well, we started even before that, but you know, for the sake of metaphor, we started as cave people, and eventually, hopefully, we'll evolve into smart, logical superhumans. We desperately want to be those smart, logical superhumans, but we're not. We're helplessly stuck in an in-between stage of evolution. Too smart to be a stupid monkey, but too stupid to be this computer mind that we want to be. This past decade, we neglected our inner caveman and wanted to desperately become the Mr. Spock we're destined to eventually become. Or 7 of 9 if you're female. The Voyager one, not the psychopathic violent Picard one. Or the... Are there trans characters now for being hyperlogical? Anyway, our quest for pure logic has moved us away from our humanity, and our culture seems to be swinging back into the other direction. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing. In the end, it's all about balance, and moving away to a completely emotional-driven direction without any logic and reason is going to backfire soon enough as well. Also, nothing what I said in this video is necessarily an endorsement from me, or meant as a good or a bad thing. It's just something I observed. Possibly observed badly. I'm just a guy on the internet after all, not a future scientist. So yeah, whether this cultural shift will lead to better or worse things, time will tell. With religion, with politics, with critics, with Sonic, Star Wars, anything. Yeah. Green Hill Zone.